All right, everyone, welcome to the guide on how I do quite a few different things in Shadow of the Colossus speedrunning, primarily related to any percent, but there are some IL or NTA setups that I'll be going over here. So first off is the Valus Ascent or any percent. This will be 30 FPS first. I'll go over 60 FPS a little bit and might show it later, but basically they're very similar with some very just minor changes depending on which one you're doing. But kind of simple overall. The first section is where it matters the most on the differences between the two frame rates, whereas the last portion where the right before you're supposed to, where you skip over doing the back jump is where it's actually, like, I guess, less important. So the first thing here is on 30 FPS. Actually, when you look at where you're aiming aggro to go, generally if you're on 60 FPS, you see like this little like alcove here. You kind of want to aim more for that at that portion, just because if you try to launch yourself at this other section here on the right, it's actually not gonna get you launched as far, even though actually on 30 FPS this is generally where I like to be. So 30 FPS, I'm actually kind of trying to aim aggro just closer this way, more or less, to this wall. So I'll go ahead and just kind of let that play out. And going, obviously mashing as much as I can. And then again, you can kind of see me in that last couple second frames there. I'm really getting close to that wall and trying to mostly hug it without actually running aggro into it. That just means I'll be closer to where I want to be whenever the cutscene starts, and then very, like I said, right along the edge of this wall. So the simple portion of it is that we're going to do a quick start, and for the like basically jump right as we get or have aggro hit the wall. And the nice thing is that we're going to have so much momentum that as we like basically run into the wall, we're just going to get thrown and flung up with really no issues whatsoever. Now, the biggest difference here, and the controller's a little bit in the way for the most part, is that actually if you're on this like rocky section that doesn't have an actual ledge, do not press R1. And I'm going to repeat that again. Do not press R1, because as soon as you do, Wander's going to try to lean down and grab the ground, and that actually causes Wander's model to kind of sink a little bit lower on that ledge than he should, and he'll just fall down. Whereas actually, if you kind of are doing the 60 FPS setup, you're going to want to do basically the same thing, not as late, and then you'll actually want to press R1 to grab the ledge here, and you'll just hop up. So that's the main difference. This is what I prefer, again, with 30 FPS. And actually, this is actually not, I wouldn't say the best launch. You can actually get it so much that Wander will actually run into this wall if you do it well enough on 30 FPS. So makes it easier, and it's also a little bit more safe, in my opinion. So go ahead, continuing forward with the video. Now we're going to get onto the second portion, which is jumping up this little like ledge on this little platform here, and then using that to kind of angle ourselves to jump on the ledge. So we're just going to angle ourselves here, and on 30 FPS, and you guys, you can see here the camera likes to mess with itself, but the main portion is that actually, so you're going to stand like kind of closer to the middle here, facing towards the ledge. And then what I like to do, or at least what has seemed to work best on 30 FPS and be the most consistent, is you're going to press the jump button. For me, that's triangle on classic controls. And once you get to the peak of your like jump, basically, you're going to press and hold it. Because again, something that people may or may not know is that the longer you hold the jump button in Shadow of the Colossus, the longer you are actually going to jump as Wander. So I'll jump and hold the button about to near close to the peak of my jump. I'm actually gonna press the press R1 or grab for those of you that use modern controls, and I'll actually do that. So it's kind of hard to slow down here, but I'm gonna hold jump, and then close to the peak, press R1, and it'll kind of magnetize you up to the ledge. And then as you can see, I'm kind of mashing triangle there to kind of go up as quickly as I can. So relatively simple overall. And so now we're going to do a quick roll here, go through this. And so the second portion is a little bit confusing, but it's really not that bad overall. So my setup here isn't super great overall, because it's almost better the faster you do it, because you get Wander to be a bit more snappy in his motion. So you just kind of aim yourself kind of back left of the wall, kind of facing away, and which isn't too hard to do. But again, if you're kind of trying to take it slow and kind of, like really line yourself up, it can almost make it worse for you. So as you can see here, this video kind of crapped up a little bit, but all I do is aim towards that and do kind of like a full jump towards the back and try to hang, like kind of angle yourself so that when you jump, you're kind of pressing down left on the controller to almost straight down. And then you're going to take this ledge here and try to like basically run on it because it's just enough of the geometry that are meant to keep you upright. And then you're just going to basically mash the jump button to get yourself up. And then as long as you're grabbing, again, you'll do the same thing as with the first jump with aggro. You get some magnet hands going, and then you'll just kind of jump up. Now on 30 FPS and sometimes 60 FPS, you can actually get launched well enough to where you actually don't need to worry about going through the or like you'll jump so high basically that you'll just end up on the ledge and you don't have to grab anything. So that's relatively rare, but I do run more on 30 FPS than 60, so that might be the biggest difference there. So when it comes to 60 FPS with the jump portion basically here, it's a lot more of just I find it easier to jump and hold R1, but it's a little bit less finicky, I would say, with the specific inputs. So something definitely to look up on your own if you're running at 60 FPS. So that's the Valus Ascent. Alrighty guys, so here is the Pheadra, at least the IL version of how to do Shakeless. It's pretty simple overall, but there are some key points that I do that I think, at least I don't want to say make it easier, but are certainly, you know, things that you know, that I need to point out from my previous video, as actually the previous video was in 60 FPS. I'm like almost 100% certain, as well as just some other key things that help with timing that I may not have pointed out before. So simply to start, for hammer hop and also for the 60 FPS like launch, basically you want to do a quick start as soon as you get on aggro. For this, don't do that. The simplest way to start is simply to run back to aggro, and actually let me switch the colors on this, is to run back to aggro immediately and just get honor. Don't actually you know, hop on or anything, but just run back to aggro, get honor. And what I like to do is mash the button here, and what you're going to see is actually I'm going to do 2 kicks on aggro, 2 to 3 kicks. It just helps with the timing. It really is best you do it. That's just how my brain thinks about it, to make sure that I'm doing the right thing and staying in line. So I'm going to get 2 kicks out of her. She's going to go basically just fast enough so that I can get on the leg. We're going to do 2 crawls. And let me go ahead and pause this video here because we're already a little bit ahead. It's pretty bang bang on this. So I do 2 kicks, and then basically something I'll explain also in the any percent version is that I'm going to try and line myself up so that I'm going right in line with the leg. I'm not trying to like turn aggro and then come back into it. I'm just going straight to it, because once you jump off of aggro, you can turn yourself midair with the analog stick and with just the mechanics of the game and force yourself into the leg and to magnetize yourself into it. So that'll be like the next little portion. So I'm gonna jump at the leg, shove myself into it, and then I'll just magnetize myself right onto it. Now from here, I like to do 2 to 3 crawls to the left, depending on how like my positioning is and where I'm at. So I'll turn the camera, and you can kind of see here that there's like a little section next to Wander's right arm where it kind of cuts off between a worn section on the left and a less worn section on the right. It's kind of like, you know, a more whitish looking worn out section of the stone. And so you generally want either Wander to be like left hand on one side of it, or at minimum have his left hand past the worn section and the right hand can be, you know, on the less worn section, or both hands on the worn section. What you don't want is your left hand right at the cusp of it, because that's apparently from what I've seen, one spot where Wander will tend to shake more and you won't be able to jump up as easily, and it'll mess up your timing and you'll lose the shakeless you know, going forward. So continuing, you can see I turn the camera and then I wait. This is really important. I wait for Pheadra to do another kick and to shake Wander. And I see a lot of people not do that. They try to get up as quickly as possible to try and use the leg to launch themselves up, and that's just not the timing you want. So wait for Wander to get shaken by Pheadra moving its leg one last time, and then after that, you can jump up and you'll still have enough time to get everything done, and you'll get the shakeless. And it's, you know, shakeless saves about, it gets you a sub 1 minute basically is the main thing. So from there we're going to get shaken, and then Just a quick little hop up to the leg. One big thing is that in the IL, you tend to want to be holding forward as you're standing here. Wander won't move for like a half second, but you have enough time while it's moving. See this other leg's off the ground and other things to not have to worry about that. So in any percent, you can kind of just stand there with like a neutral analog stick, and it won't move you, and you won't fall off. But in the IL, you want to be moving, like pressing forward. So as we're pressing forward, we're going to wait a second, and then as soon as Wander starts to move again, we're going to be able to, or he starts to run up. You can run up and to the left, and then we're going to do the same thing that we did with the leg when we jumped up aggro, is we're going to jump towards the leg here, and we're going to try to grab sort of in this like middle portion. You don't want to grab up here, or you don't want to grab too far down, because if you grab too far down, you won't be able to get up without crawling extra, and in the top portion, you'll be a little bit too close to the flaps when you jump, and it'll mess up the timing. So continuing forward, you jump up, you land here, and then again, you let Pheadra shake you. If you don't get shaken, or if you're somehow not shaken immediately, let Pheadra shake you from the foot stepping down, and then mash your way up onto the leg. And take your time here. Like, you don't need to be, the speediest ever. It's a pretty tight timing in a window that you want to stay in. So you don't want to try and go too fast, but obviously you don't want to be hanging there forever. So from there, from this position, we're going to kind of just actually run directly to the left and try to jump up to like the middle portion of this flap. You don't want to be too far to the right or the left, because that'll mess up where you jump up to, and it'll increase, if you're on the right, it'll increase your tendency to shake. If you're on the left, you won't be aligned correctly, and you'll miss, again, shakeless. And so we'll get to the key portion of how generally you've gotten shakeless or not in just a moment. So with that, we wait for one to get shaken as he is on the, this middle portion of the leg. We hop up, just do a quick hop up. Don't hold the button. And I'm going to reference your stamina bar here in just a moment. And as soon as you hop up, run to like up left, and you're going to want to jump and kind of hold your jump so that you're on, again, that middle flap. And so from here, you shouldn't shake anymore on Pheadra. And so this is where the jumps in the stamina bar becomes important. So you can see there's like two circles here, one that's like a smaller, darker yellow circle outside of a larger, brighter yellow circle. When you're jumping, or you're holding the jump button, you get a full jump up to climb whenever you hold the jump button just outside of this small circle. Otherwise, you're going to do these like little short hops, and that's not what you want. You want 3 full jumps, and for each one, you should not shake. If you get shaken at any portion of these set of jumps, then you've lost shakeless, and then just deal with it. You're not going to get it. So moving forward, you can see I hold charge immediately. As soon as it gets past that inner circle, I do a jump. I let Wander grab again once more. And then one slight thing that I like to do is when I'm jumping, I like to hold right on the analog stick. I'm not sure if it really does anything other, like, because you're just jumping straight up. It's not like actually moving you to the right, but that's just a little thing that I've always done. Not gonna 100% recommend it, but it's something that I do. And so generally you'll know by this second jump, if you get shaken, then you've messed up the timing, and then it's not going to work. But with the third jump, as soon as you land on Pheadra, you're not going to hold grab anymore, but just push forward on the the left analog stick and start mashing the jump button, because then you'll just be able to run up Phaedra's back, and you should get Pheadra shakeless is what you should get. So the third jump, we charge, we jump, hold forward, and just jump, and you're perfectly fine, good to go. And then bam, that's shakeless. It's pretty simple, but it's very tight and a lot of just immediate movement and going. The last thing would be is that the reason I charge up that first stab a little bit more is that actually if you do like a little bit of damage to the minor sigil, that means you don't have to do like a pixel health stab on the actual sigil. So that's it. Go back and just review this slowly each time and exactly what I'm doing. But yeah, the main pieces for this are, don't try to use the leg to launch you, because that's going to mess up the timing. Let yourself get shaken that first time after you do your crawls. Once you jump up to the like middle, I guess, thigh portion of the leg, you should get shaken as you grab. That's fine. Let Wander come to a full rest of his natural like holding on a ledge animation. jump, do a quick hop up, which is just a tap of jump, and then do a long jump into the upper flap. Then do 3 big jumps, which you don't want to charge it the whole time because that'll mess up the timing. Just charge it enough to the smaller circle, and that gives you the full jump. And then do that 3 times, and the third time, don't grab again, just hold forward and mash jump. And if you do fall down Phedra's backside at that point, again, you've lost Shakeless, very likely. Just roll with the punches. But if you do get it so that you're just running up the back towards his neck, then there's like a 95% chance you got it. Sometimes the AI doesn't cooperate and you can just straight up miss it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot more. If you follow that exact timing, then you're going to get Shakeless, because any sort of deviation just throws that timing off. So is what I've noticed, at least from testing. So yeah, good luck with it. And now we're on to Any percent Pheadra. Alrighty, folks. So here is Any percent Pheadra. It's really not that difficult from the IL setup that I was explaining earlier in the video, and most likely just transition to. But it's basically the exact same lineup. The only difference is instead of like going right away and at a certain pace, we're going to be looking for a just Phedra's foot. Nonetheless, it's the exact same setup. You do the exact same things. Overall, nothing different overall for 30 FPS when trying to line this up. But just got to make sure you get the same thing. So to quickly peruse and go over exactly what you're looking for, what I like to do is to kind of cut this kind of close, so I keep my camera angle on the left side of aggro. Some people don't actually know that based off of how aggro is running in your camera angle, you can switch to the view from the right or left of her, but I prefer the left, especially for Pheadra, because that helps me keep everything kind of in one scene rather than having to fight, looking at Phedra's legs over where aggro's going. So go ahead and go there. Like I said, I like to angle myself a little bit closer to these rocks on the left, but that's not the hugest deal. So we're going to stop, skip the cutscene, try to keep going at full speed so that when we stop, we're at an immediate stop, and then don't move the camera, don't move nothing. And then what you're going to look for is basically Phedra's foot, right back foot, the one that you're actually going to jump on later. Look at that foot there, and as soon as you see that foot hit the ground and create a dust cloud, then you're just going to go forward. Do not quick start. Again, do not quick start, or else that'll mess things up. So look for that foot to bam, hit the ground, dust, and then you can see at that immediate instant, I started pressing the go button on classic controls. So we saw the dust cloud, started going. We're going to go ahead and go now towards Pheadra. We're just going to mash and try to go full speed as we can, and then shove yourself into the leg, and then just basically repeat the steps for the IL. Alrighty, everyone. So next up on the list is Hydrus Any percent setup. It's fairly simple. It's just more of, you just have to have the exact things that at least I reference and look at to be able to know what I'm talking about overall. But the first thing that I'm actually going to point out that just kind of helps out with just some quality of life, but makes it easier to be fast when approaching Hydrus is actually at the start here, whenever I'm just as aggro and I'm going to be accelerating towards the initial cutscene to enter us into the arena, I'm actually going to run aggro straight into this wall. I'm just going to run her straight into it and kind of force her with the controller and the analog to just hold hard right and make her run into the wall, which is actually going to make her stop whenever we enter the cutscene. And the reason is so that then whenever we actually get started and come into the cutscene and start the arena, then we have the opportunity to actually do a quick start, which is just much faster, as you can see. So now I actually get stopped, forced her into this wall. Now we're doing a quick start. That's much faster than her just kind of casually galloping into the arena itself, and gets us just faster to the end of the portion, and helps her kind of align us where we want to do our jump as well. So we're going to start up. We do a quick start here. Easy peasy, very simple. But as soon as we get down here, we jump. And sometimes if you get her close enough without actually jumping off of this little ring here, she'll align herself like right along this edge where is actually where you want to jump as Wander, but it kind of helps her guide you so you don't like get caught one way or another. So you can kind of run along her as you go to jump down. So that's just the quick, easy thing you can do both on 30%, 30 FPS and 60 FPS, just to kind of, again, help you line yourself up and be just quicker in your transitions and not waste as much time in the overworld rather than in the actual fights. So moving on, this is the start of where I try to align myself and do things. So again, this is 30 FPS. And so what I like to do is, oh man, I hate it when the video gets scuffed, but let's move back just a moment here, back to my paint. So as I pointed out with that line, I like to have Wander run forward, and then I'm basically trying to kind of get to this like edge of this ledge right here alongside this like I guess it's not the wall, I guess there, the fenced area, I forget what the barricade. And we're just going to jump straight over and down, and we're going to hold jump basically the entire time, but there's going to be a certain portion of the water where we're going to be aiming so we can align ourselves and get the appropriate setup. It's pretty consistent. I've noticed that when I get it, I basically get it every time, and I'm able to get the exact camera location that I want, which is the biggest deal, so that we get that consistency. So from there, we're basically going to jump and hold jump a pretty long time, and then what looks a little weird, and what I'm basically going to aim for when I land in the water and start swimming is, so you can see there's just like this little section right here, right? So what I want actually is Wander to kind of be in line with this line right here, and I'm actually angled pretty well, but when I swim, I want Wander to be like right here. So that's extremely just like what's the best word to look for? It's just, completely random. There's no like way I could have known this without just testing out, different varieties of, where to land. But basically a formal like length would be like one Wander. So I want to be one Wander, like, leave some space for another Wander in between where you are and the edge of this moss. So that's completely random. I just happened to find this spot when trying to align myself and noticing my camera angles whenever we loaded into the cutscene, but that's basically it. So that's the spot we want to aim for. That's going to get us the best camera positioning. So I land there, and as you can see, I kind of just barely scoop myself, one Wander away. So it's not super wide, but I'm in line with that. So it's not super tight either, but as long as you're within that bit, you're pretty good. So you can see I kind of stop and start right where those are, and being a little bit closer is not bad, but you kind of want to be within that general region. So video bugs out. So the biggest thing here is as you load into the cutscene, don't move the camera. I've seen a couple people like move the camera and try to basically line things up and eyeball it a little bit better, but you want to use the camera angle that's given to you, simply because that's going to make it so that you have the same like lineup every time, and you're not trying to force yourself to, find your own camera angle, if that makes sense. So leave the camera, don't touch it, let it find its own place, and you'll see that every time it's basically the same. So from here, we're just going to let Hydrus go, and as soon as Hydrus's eye crosses this pillar and basically goes in line with it, you're going to start, as Wander, you're going to start going towards, well, that's a very crappy line, but you're going to start going towards that line, that pillar. And that's the exact same thing we do in the NTA or IL setup. It's just more of this, that's the timing of when we need to do it. So you can see that the eye hit, I'm starting to press forward. There's a little bit of a delay, obviously, with Wander moves in the water versus when he's actually going to be going. So at that point, that's what we do. And then I start counting the number of like physical swim animations that Wander does. Now here's the big difference. In 30 FPS, the count is slightly different and a little bit more just off in general than the 60 FPS one. So in 30 FPS, what happens is Wander does like this little like wind up animation, or in general, Wander does a little wind up animation to where he starts getting into the full swim animation. So if I get this started, you can see that Wander does a little bit of like a half swim, and then he does the full thing with both his left and right arm, and we're swimming. And so basically the only thing I'm doing right here is, get back to the actual start of the video. The only thing I'm doing is I'm going to count that half swim as I'm just going to announce to myself count, and that's going to start the number of counts that I'm doing, and I'm going to count 10 full swim animations. Once I hit that 10, I get on 30 FPS. I do like a half swim where Wander sticks his right arm forward, and I stop. And on 30 FPS, do not move once you hit that spot. Okay. All right. So we're going to count those. We're going to do count and then 10 swim animations. So we go forward. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and a little bit. So that's the full 10 swims, the count, the announcing the count, the 10 and a little bit swims. Now, the big reason that you don't want to move is that really just kind of messes up Hydra's look at you. But the biggest thing that you want to do here is, again, don't move. But what I like to do is peek over with the camera and make sure that Hydrus actually is a little bit past this pillar on the right, because if he is, that you know that he's gone far enough that he's actually going to come at you at the right angle and not try to like cut it close, is what I would say. It's just I don't know how much of this, like a lot of this trick is a lot of hearsay, and it just works just because these are the things that I do, and this is how I like to make sure my setup is the same. So from there, we're going to make sure Hydrus comes around the corner, and I like to peek and make sure he's coming at me. And once the video gets going, peek and make sure he's coming at me. Make sure that he kind of has his eyes and has the orange eyes, is ready to come attack me. And so from here on out, what I'm actually going to do is, and this, I'm just going to go ahead and explain the setup. This is the exact same way that I do my IL setup. It's consistent, and it's easier for me to get a visual cue of exactly what I'm looking for when waiting for Hydrus, excuse me, to when, or at least when to jump, how to jump, and everything else. So if this here is exactly how I do my IL setup, and the best way to, I guess, for me to follow it if you want a good visual cue of what you're doing, because I see a lot of people who they kind of look at from Wander from the side, like above the water slightly, and to me that just doesn't make any sense. There's no visual cue there of what to do. So I'm gonna let Hydrus come at me from basically the side, and as Hydrus is coming directly at me, he's gonna hit like an apex of underwater, and hit the apex of the, I guess, his swim as he comes at you to try and hit you with his electric horns. And as soon as Hydrus's snoot goes up and it immediately starts to dip back down, what you're gonna do is you're gonna jump left in line with Hydrus and do a kind of a short-ish but not too short jump stab. So jump out of the water, do a jump stab, and then from there jump forward perpendicular to Hydrus. You're going to get shocked, and that shock is going to kind of stop you from going too far forward. And then as soon as the shock goes away, jump back left, and then you'll be right on Hydrus's neck, able to run up it and jump on him. So that's the simple of 1, 2, 3, jump in line with Hydrus, jump perpendicular to Hydrus, and then back towards Hydrus. So with that out of the way, we're just going to let this play out, and you can kind of see everything kind of just come together. So Hydrus is coming up at us. As soon as Hydrus's snoot kind of hits you, or again, you can kind of see he hit the apex and he starts to kind of go away from you and down, we're going to jump again in line with him, do jump up actually out of the water and do a jump stab. And you can see as soon as that happens, Hydrus is going to kind of do a little twist animation. And then we're going to jump forward away from him. It's mostly just kind of jump, because you jump so quickly, you're not jumping super far, but you are jumping away from Hydrus here. You can see I am hitting up forward, a little bit of a forward right, and then you're going to get shocked, like I said, shocked, and then here I kind of just walk up, but if you do that back left jump, that's the exact same thing, and you do end up right on Hydrus's neck. So that's about it. That's the Hydrus skip. 60 FPS follows that same, basically the same setup, except you count your swims differently. So we're going to go ahead and hop into that portion next. All right, so here we're starting with the 60 FPS Hydrus skip. I skipped most of the early portions just so we don't need to repeat that section. As I said, Agro isn't perfectly in line with this, but you can tell that she's kind of really close to it, and we're doing the same exact jump. We're going to do the same exact lineup as well, because that's the most convenient thing is that if you ever switch between the two, you know exactly where you're going. So again, I sort of aim myself for this line here and try to be one-ish, maybe a little bit plus Wander away. So it's a little bit more room than one actual Wander, but it's not too much. So that's the setup. That's where we want to be. Continue the video. and skip immediately. Once again, do not touch the camera. The camera will rest itself where you want it to be. And once again, we're going to wait for Hydrus to line up with this line. And as soon as his eye crosses that line, we're going to start counting the number of swims that we do. The main difference here is with Hydrus in 60 FPS, you actually want to, in 30 FPS, I mentioned that you count the first half swim as like as a an initiator for your countdown or count up. Now, the main thing there is it's just the timing, and that's how it's worked for me ever since I've been trying to do it, and that's just how my brain functions. Now, for 60 FPS, you actually want to count that as a swim. So the half like little extra startup swim is going to be 1 in your 60 FPS count. So we're going to count to, I believe, 9. It's been a lot of times since I've worked on this, but I'll let this play out itself. So we're just going to hit it and go, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we stop. 60 FPS isn't as important that you move, like that you don't move within the actual skip, but I mean, it's just easier to stay consistent, with your lineups and what you're trying to do. On 60 FPS, Hydrus moves a little bit faster and is okay with you being quicker on the draw, basically, to get the appropriate lineup. So on 30 FPS, you want Hydrus to be behind this pillar a little bit. On 60 FPS, if Hydrus is a little bit into the pillar like he is now, or not fully into the pillar, then that's fine. So it's the exact same setup here. We're just going to wait for Hydrus to turn around. As soon as he notices us and starts coming toward us, we're going to switch our camera angle so that we're looking directly down on Wander's head, and we can see Hydrus coming in at a clean angle towards us, just in a straight line. And so with that straight line, we wait for Hydrus to come up. His snoot comes down. We do a jump stab. We jump fully out of the water, do a jump stab. We jump forward away from him. That shocks us. And then we do a back left jump. And again, we're perfectly on him. If you roll right there, that's fine. The biggest thing about getting the Hydrus skip, if he does this turn, sometimes he'll go back into the water right away. But really, at the end of the day, what we're looking for is that as long as you're on the neck or some portion of him, then it's going to register that you're on the Colossus, and he's going to go into the actual animation for him to, for you to start stabbing him. And the important thing is, if you have to start stabbing him quickly enough, because that will fully put him into the I guess not the attack mode, but in the mode where you can actually go in and stab him, and he stays consistent along the edge of the water. So as you can see, that's basically the same exact skip, a little bit more quicker timing at the end of the day, but that's just kind of how 60 FPS is with some of these things. So that's 60 FPS Hydrus, the exact same thing, the exact same setup. It's pretty clean and consistent, so it's hard to find those immediate points to point out to people, but that's exactly what this video is for. Alrighty, folks. Now up next is Basaran on any percent, how to get the best setup. So this setup's pretty easy and should put you in line with pretty similar setup to what you do for NTA, but it's not going to be the exact same, but it's going to be pretty close. So the first thing is, when you're coming across this bridge, the first thing to notice is that you can see a geyser off in the distance. That's kind of what you're going to be aiming yourself for, but I like to run to the right of it. That just kind of lines me up with where I want to go, just to kind of get started with where we need to be and how we want to align ourselves, because we don't want to mirror where we are going to be in NTA. That's the main thing. So you're going to head for the mouth of the cave, and then as soon as you start getting closer to the mouth, you're going to see these little rock outcroppings here that are a little bit, and there's one right behind Agra over here, that you want to kind of gauge yourself with as to relative to where you are to the start of the fight. What I like to do is this middle one here that's towards the mouth of the cave. You're going to shoot for it directly, and then you're going to run directly towards the middle of the cave, right? That's going to line yourself up perfectly with where you want to be at the start of the fight. It's a pretty simple lineup, but overall, again, it's one of those random things that I noticed kind of with the Hydra skip is, if I put myself here and do this sort of count, then I get the skip, kind of just random luck, I should say, a random chance. So I'm going to line myself up. As soon as I run to the middle, there's going to be these 2 in a row. and we're just going to run down, kind of just down the center pipe. That's not the center, but down the center pipe, you can kind of see Basaran's, outline in the background there. So those are the two rocks or little like outcroppings that I use myself to gauge myself and line up, and I just run directly towards Basaran there. And like I said with the Pheadra portion, I like to be on like my camera to be on the left side of aggro, not the right. It sometimes does switch, but it's not the biggest deal here because you're not trying to, I guess, gauge yourself as where you're trying to be. So to continue the video, we're just going to hit it, and again, we're going to hit the cutscene here in a second, and then we're going to be going full speed, mashing the go button as fast as we can so that we can immediately do a quick stop within the cutscene. And let's see, I think I put a little bit of delay on this in the actual video. And so the fight starts, and it's covered up by the control a little bit. We're at a full stop. Again, we don't want to be, you want to be going full speed, so you are stopped as the cutscene starts. And then really, we're going to be looking at Basaran's right leg to its right, our left. And what we're looking for is that Basaran's going to walk forward with this leg first, and then as soon as this other leg steps and you can hear like you'll hear like a crunch sound or you see it hit the ground, is when we're going to do a quick start to run towards the leg. I'm just going to shut up while this listens. I'm going to hopefully turn this up just a little bit so that you can hear it. So let's do that. So excuse me if the sound is a little loud, but there's the one leg, and so you see it hit the ground. The sound isn't the best there, but it is what we're looking for. So let's go back just a little bit, and I'll be quiet for the front leg again until we quick start. So we quick start going forward, and then we're going to aim for the usual spot of this little piece right here. And the biggest difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS, and the reason I'm only making one version of this, is simply because when you jump off of aggro is the only difference between the two. 30 FPS, I think you want to jump a little later, whereas 60 FPS you get a little bit better of a launch off of aggro, and you can actually end up very easily on the top section on 60 FPS. So that's the main thing. You want to jump a little bit earlier off of aggro on 60, a little bit later on 30. But you can just experiment with that yourself to see what you like and what works for you. But that's the main thing. So generally, Basaran's going to do a bit, going to try and shoot you with bullets. But generally, when they do fire, either they'll hit on the outside of the leg, so they won't actually hit you, or you just won't see them like you did there. So that's really it for the setup itself. It's fairly simple and an easy thing to practice, and nice to give yourself a few moments to learn coming from the piece off of it. So fairly simple. The hardest thing to learn actually is the jump to the leg itself, and it's a pretty easy thing if you miss it just to turn around and go, reset basically, or quit out and redo. So we're going to skip forward a little bit here. So let's say you didn't hit the jump and you've got to reset on IL Basaran. So we go through this, and oh no, you fell off. We got to find aggro as she runs around. And I think actually here she just didn't do anything. So I just went off this cliff and sadly had to run. And you can tell I was a little upset that aggro wasn't around, and I just jump off and die. So you've killed yourself on Basaran, and how do you get close to the IL? The easiest thing to do is you'll be put into the IL positioning as soon as you're there. But what I like to use is these black bars at the top and bottom of the video that actually generally correspond with the allotment of movement, or when you're allowed to start moving in the IL itself. So in the IL, what I prefer to do is move the camera so that I can actually locate and find aggro relatively easily. The black bars are gone, and I start moving towards her. Now, the easiest thing to do, for me at least, is to make sure I get the right timing, because you want to wait till just after 2 seconds on the IL timer to make sure that you're not going to be going too early for the actual skip. But, kind of hard to do this as there's no timer. So what I prefer to do is take Wander and just shove myself into aggro. And as soon as I shove myself in, I let the analog stick go to neutral, as you can see here. And then what Wander's actual model will do is he'll do like a little shake animation, and kind of, it's not a shake, but it's more of like he'll just like reset, I guess, in some way. It's really weird. And then you can grab onto aggro, do a quick start as soon as you grab on, and then bam, you got the exact same setup as the IL. So pretty simple overall. I find the timing to be the exact same. So if you don't get that little like push down or shake animation, that's totally fine. If you just wait just a teensy bit longer, you just don't want to go too early, because that'll actually mess up when Basaran will do the rear and when you'll actually be able to jump on him. So everything from there is the exact same. I actually think I mess up my jump at this point, but hey, that's not the important part. It's about all the setup, right? So that's the Basaran any percent setup, and also the backup strat, basically, to get yourself or at least to reset yourself if you want to retry.